Hey, all over our city right now, there are people gathered at a CCV campus. 9 campuses, 1 church. Welcome to CCV. And if you're new around here and you feel like we could be part of your faith journey, we would love that. In fact, that's why we're in this series on prayer. I don't know about you, but I'd love a few more W's in my win column in prayer, right? My batting average could be lifted a bit in prayer. I get more no's than I would like. So I just want to introduce you to a few prayers that God will always say yes to. You want God to say yes to you? Here's some prayers. I know that sounds presumptuous. It's not presumptuous. It's a promise by none other than Jesus Christ himself. Here's the way he put it: if you remain in me and my words remain in you, ask whatever you wish and it will be done for you. That is such a cool promise. You understand this. When we ask for things that are on point, on mission for God's will, he's gonna say yes to us. So we've examined a number of those. In fact, the first 2 that we looked at, this is really kind of cool. You don't even have to be a Christian, and if you pray this prayer, God's still gonna say yes to you. The first one was for wisdom. Look, you wanna know how to raise your kids better, how to stay married longer, how to work ethically, and you say, God, I need wisdom. He will always say yes to you. Now, last week, Dave was here, talked about a great promise in the Bible that if you're ever tempted, you're on a path leading to a bad destination, and you say, God, help me find an off-ramp from this path leading to evil. God will always say yes to you. Again, you don't have to be a Christian. This week, and I feel so honored that this fell on my plate, this is the only prayer that Jesus asked you to ask him twice. This is important to him, that you pray this particular prayer. In fact, I want to introduce this prayer to you. It comes out of Matthew chapter 9, when Jesus is getting ready to send out his apostles. He says, the harvest is plentiful, but the workers are few. Ask the Lord of the harvest, therefore, to send out workers into the harvest field. He told you to pray that not once, but twice. The harvest, man, there's a bunch to be harvested, but only few that are saying yes to God. Now, this is an interesting prayer because you know that if you pray this prayer, Jesus will say yes to you, but only if you say yes to him, because you are the answer to your own prayer. Now, the first time Jesus gave this, he gave this command to 12 apostles. They were kind of his main crew. And you know why 12? So you're smart people, some of you figured this out. There were 12 tribes of Israel. Jesus appointed 1 apostle to lead each of the 12 tribes. In other words, this was a powerful political play. The second time Jesus gives this command, it's a totally different group of people. Not 12, but 72. Why 72? That sounds arbitrary to you. But if you were a Jew, it wouldn't sound arbitrary because this number comes up in Jewish history. Way back when Moses freed the Israelites from Egypt, they became a nation. In order to handle the legal disputes of all the Israelites, he established 72 elders. Now, those 72 elder judges became what is known as the Supreme Court of Israel. We call it the Sanhedrin. They had 72 members. So this is cool. Follow along. Jesus sends 12 apostles. They're like his senators. And then he sends out 72 delegates. That's his judiciary, like the Supreme Court. And everywhere Jesus sent these guys, people are going, I know what you're up to, Jesus. You plan on ruling our nation. And Jesus is going, nope. I plan on ruling the world. That sounds so imperialistic. I get it. But do you realize that when Jesus left the earth, the last command he ever gave was to go into all the world and make disciples of all nations? It's called the Great Commission. It's not repeated twice. It's repeated 5 times. Jesus' final command is our first priority. So around here at CCV, we have some core values that kind of drive what we do. If you weren't here in August, I would strongly encourage you on the app or online, check out our August series called At the Core. This is who we really are. So if you're new, that's for you. But our greatest core value, and there's not a close second, is a heart for evangelism. Because that was Jesus' heart, not to rule Israel, but to rule the world. And here at CCV, we have in our sights this valley, taking this territory for Jesus Christ. That's what we're about. Now, if it feels imperialistic to you, can I read for you the passage that precedes the prayer? In other words, before Jesus gave the command, I want you to go out and preach the gospel. I want you to make me famous all around Israel. Before he gave that, here's what drove it. A heartbeat of Jesus, Matthew chapter 9, verse 36. When he saw the crowds, he had compassion on them because they were harassed and helpless like sheep without a shepherd. I know the other men of this world who wanted to rule the world were dictators, they were imperialistic, they were evil. But our Lord wants to rule the world for a different reason. He wants to lead this world like a flock of sheep to green pastures and quiet waters. That's the same heartbeat of CCV. We're not trying to get bigger and stronger for ourselves. We want to have influence over the valley because people around here, have you noticed? They're harassed, they're helpless, they're hurting, and we want to engage. And I see it, all the campuses that I visit, I see this. A couple weeks ago, I was at the Surprise campus, and an older-ish woman, it's always relative, you know, she came up to me and was just so thankful for CCV. She said, listen, my husband has been very sick for a long time, and I've had really difficult time caring for him. I made it through because of these Christian women on this campus that surrounded me and helped me through such a difficult season. I was on the Peoria campus last Saturday night, and I saw one of our stars coaches. You know, they were giving awards to each of their teams into the season, and he had these little kids, they're like this tall, and with each one, he called them by name, and he identified one reason why he was so happy to have them on his team. And I saw these little kids that were standing 9 feet tall because somebody invested in them. And so I kind of hung around afterwards. I said, I just got to ask you, like, what do you do for a living? Because you are so good at this. You know what he does? He works in a penitentiary. It's a tough job. He's not finding his significance at work. He finds his significance on the weekend because this is where he's pouring into children. The last weekend I was on the Chandler campus, and a couple came up to me and said, we just got to tell you, we love CCV. We are still married because of this church. We weren't finding our way, but we found ourselves here, and we planted our feet, and we got the resources so that our marriage could survive and thrive. From children to older adults to couples raising kids. In fact, I love being on our East Valley campus and Anthem campus, particularly because when you stand outside and you see family after family flowing in with kids, you realize we're giving parents resources to give a godly heritage to their children. I love being on our Avondale campus and the Midtown campus because of those two campuses in particular, you see a diversity that honors God. Our Scottsdale campus, our North Phoenix campus, they're a crossroads of commerce in our city. And leaders from various industries come to church there to find the spiritual bandwidth to lead well all across this valley. And that's what Jesus wants for you. Have you ever walked by a baptistry at your campus and just thought, man, I'd love to be a part of that story. There's life change happening there. Or maybe you sit in the service and you look up at the big screen and you see someone's life story being told and you think, man, I would love to be a part. I would love to be a change agent in something like that. You can be. In fact, it's the only thing that Jesus asked twice that you pray for. The harvest is ripe, are you ready to invest in the harvest? Here's the challenge for all of us. 95% of all Christians never lead anyone to Christ. Come on. And I know we all have our reasons for not sharing our faith. We don't want to be bold. We don't want to be obnoxious. We don't want to turn anybody off. But I want you to listen to a 30-second soundbite from a man you know. You've maybe even seen his show in Vegas, Penn and Teller. Penn Jillette is an atheist, and he's very outspoken. And I want you to listen to what Penn Jillette thinks about the 95% of Christians who never share their faith. Listen to this.
And I've always said, that I don't respect people who don't proselytize. I don't respect that at all. If you believe that there's a heaven and hell, and people could be going to hell or not getting eternal life or whatever, and you think that, it's not really worth telling them this because it would make it socially awkward. How much do you have to hate somebody to not proselytize? How much do you have to hate somebody to believe that everlasting life is possible and not tell them that?
That's a good question. So why don't we share our faith more? The dominant reasons, there are three. Over 23% of people are afraid to share their faith. And what we're afraid of mostly is that we will offend someone. But the reality is, you just heard Penn tell about it, that there are some people who are going to get offended. I get it. But even atheists will appreciate that you care enough about them to share with them what is important to you. When are we going to fear more that 85% of this city does not know Christ than that a few might be offended by our sharing good news? There's another reason that we're introverted. 19% are introverted. You may not believe this. I actually lean in that direction. And you may not see it when I'm out front or on the stage, but if some of you have seen me on an airplane, I've got my Bose noise canceling headphones in. I've got a book in my lap. I'm pretty inaccessible. This is my happy place right here. But if I had to choose between extroverts and introverts sharing their faith, I think we all should, but if I had to choose, I would go with introverts every time. Here's why. Extroverts walk in a room and say, "Here I am." An introvert walks in a room and says, "There you are." They're the ones that see people like Jesus did, like sheep that are harassed and helpless, and they can lead them to a better place. There's another reason that 15%, their friends and family all attend church already. Now, this is the gravitational pull of Christians. Do you realize that almost every Christian after 5 years, anyone been a Christian more than 5 years? After 5 years, typically you have no non-Christian friends. So those of you who have been Christians for less than 5 years, you might think, I don't know enough to share my faith. Oh, no. It's not about knowing enough. It's about knowing, it's who you know, not what you know. And in this instance, you have the best contacts of people who still don't know about Jesus. Now, for the rest of you that you say, I really don't have any non-Christian friends, I'm say this as nice as I can. You need new friends. Come on, there are people all around who would love to know what you know. In fact, here's the opportunity for us. 33% of the de-churched plan to return to church. Here's what that means. If someone has ever been to church, as a little kid, maybe as a teenager, they had a girlfriend or boyfriend that brought him to church, or young couples. They have some background in the church, and now they're not attending the church. 1/3 of all those people plan to come back to church. Now, maybe they won't, maybe they will, but they don't need an explanation. They need an invitation, and that's where you come in. Now, here's the difficulty. We have the harvest is plentiful, laborers are few. We have 95% of Christians who never bring anyone to Jesus, and yet we have 1/3 of our culture that is waiting for someone to invite them to church. That's the gap. Can you fill the gap? Now, before you answer, you should know that the 12 that Jesus trained to do that were fishermen, uneducated country boys that didn't have sophistication, education, power, or clout. And Jesus gave them some training in Matthew chapter 10 that is still available to you. So what I want to do is cherry pick 4 statements of Jesus, kind of coaching tips for how you can be successful in inviting someone to church. Now, if you pray this prayer, Jesus will say yes to you. Here's how you can say yes to Jesus. Number 1, invite the right people at the right time. Invite the right people at the right time. Jesus said in verse 5, do not go among the Gentiles or enter any town of the Samaritans. Go rather to the lost sheep of Israel. As you go, proclaim this message, the kingdom of heaven has come near. So it's the right time, but don't go to the wrong people. Now, does that mean that Jesus didn't love the Samaritans? He didn't love the Gentiles? No, he'll get to them. But right here, right now, go to the Jews, because without a firm foundation, we can't build a church. That's what Jesus said. So how do you know? This is the right time, no question, right time. How do you know who are the right people? I'm going to ask you 3 questions. And I want to ask that everyone, on all campuses, all 9, everyone take out a pen or take out your notes on your phone, because with each question, I want you to write one name. You ready? Here's question number 1. Who have you invested in? Well, I don't know, I've invested in anybody. No, you have. We all have. We all have. And you know, sometimes you've coached someone or helped someone or raised some kids. Here's how you know if you've crossed the line where you've earned the right to invite. It's pretty simple. You ready? And you got to write down a name. If someone was here right now in front of you and their fly was down, would you look at him and say, dude, take care of business? Like if you know someone that well, if you care for someone like that, you've already earned the right to invite. Or ladies, maybe for you, how many of you at a restaurant would say, you got something right there in your teeth? Yeah, you got it. You're okay. Good. How many of you would do that? Write down the name of a person that you know you've already earned the right to invite. Question number 2. Who could use some good news? Got a name? Maybe someone who lost their job or wish they had lost their job. Maybe someone who's had a miscarriage or can't get pregnant. Maybe someone who is suddenly single. Who needs good news? Because you know what the word evangelize means? Good news. That's all it means. Good news. Why would you hold that from someone that you love who needs good news? Question number 3. Who is in transition or change? Did you know that people who are experiencing change are open to change in other areas? So do you know of anyone who just started dating or just got married, who just had a baby? Do you know of anyone on your street? Have you seen a box truck somewhere on your street, a moving van somewhere on your street? You don't have to know them to invite them. They are in change, so they are open to change. It's a perfect time to invite. So the first principle is invite the right people at the right time. You should have 3 names written down. And maybe you don't know the neighbor up the street, but you can just write neighbor up the street who's moving. Number 2, here's the second bit of advice. Jesus says that helping people helps people hear. This is what he says in verse 8. Heal the sick, raise the dead, cleanse those who have leprosy, drive out demons, freely you've received, freely give. Now, maybe you've never cleansed leprosy for anyone. Maybe you haven't driven out a demon since your kids left the house. I don't know. You don't have to do a miracle to do something miraculous. There's all kinds of ways that we can bring healing into people's lives. So I'm going to ask you 3 questions. With each question, write down one name. You follow me? Each question, one name. Question number 1, who have you coached? Maybe it was a sports team, Or maybe there's someone at work that you're on-ramping into their new position. Maybe it's not at work at all, but someone asked you to help them learn to cook or learn to do carpentry. Maybe someone called you and said, hey, I'm doing this in my house and I think you know would you come over and help me with it? If you have coached someone, you have earned the right to invite. Question number 2, who have you tipped? I typically tip 20%. So Thursday I was out to lunch with a couple friends and the bill was $40. I tipped $8. Look, if you give me $8, you get to invite me. I'm sorry, that's just the way it works. Right? You've done a favor for someone. You've helped someone. Why are you so embarrassed about inviting someone that you just gave cash to? Seems to me like you've earned the right to invite. Here's the third question. Who have you served? Are you in a carpool with anyone? Have you raked someone's lawn? Have you pulled in the trash bins for your neighbor when they were out of town? Have you babysat someone's kid or babysat someone's dog? You've earned the right to invite. That's coaching tip number 2. Coaching tip number 3. Hospitality opens doors. Hospitality opens doors. Listen to what Jesus said. As you enter the home, give it your greeting. If the home is deserving, let your peace rest on it. If it is not, let your peace return to you. The word peace is shalom. For the Jews, shalom was not just political peace, but it was health, it was beauty, it was holisticness in your life. And Jesus believed, I do too, that if you have spiritual power, if God's hand is on you, if God's Spirit is in you, you can actually bestow blessings on other people's homes. You can pray for them, you can bless them, you can encourage them. How much more if you have them into your home? So I'm gonna ask you 3 questions, and you're gonna write down one name with each question. You wanna know who's the right person at the right time? Here we go. Question number 1, who has been at your table? Your kids, you have the right to invite. This week is Thanksgiving. You're gonna be around the table with your weird uncles and your crazy cousins. If they're at your table, you have earned the right to invite. Some of you are actually inviting friends because they're far away from home, they have no place to go. Good for you. You've earned the right to invite. Whoever is at your table, you have crossed the threshold of appropriateness for inviting them to church. Here's the next question. Who could you invite into your home? My wife and I, we always have a list of people that we would like to invite into our home, to have over for dinner. Do you know the greatest invite to church of the entire year? Do you know? Like 1/3 of all people are ready to say yes to you. They don't need an explanation, they need an invitation. 1/3 are ready to say yes. But on this particular day, it doubles Christmas. And we're having all kinds of Christmas services around here. How cool would it be for you between Thanksgiving and Christmas to plan to invite some? You were already planning on having them over for a meal, but you right now with your spouse, you just said, we're gonna invite them over and we're gonna invite them to church. You plan on having them at your table. When you have someone at your table, the chances of you getting a yes for an invite to church are way higher. You've earned the right to invite. Third question, who could you invite to a game? Like you're going to a sporting event. Okay, so you don't like sports. Who could you invite to a cooking class? Or a hunt, or a hike, or a bike ride? If you are friends with someone that you hang out with, you've crossed the threshold. You have earned the right to invite. But let me clarify, because a lot of people, we just feel like I invited them and they said they couldn't go, and so it was a no. No, it was a not now. Do you know it takes 3 invites before you can get into people's schedules? That's true for you right now. If someone said, hey, can you go out to dinner? You probably already have plans. It takes 3. So the person isn't saying no, they're saying not now. So let's just do the math. If you invite 3 people 3 times, you will get 1 yes. Wait a minute, how many names do you have on your? Oh, 9. Very good. Pick 3 of them. Invite them 3 times. You will get a yes if you're clear. See, when we invite people to say, hey, you want to come to church with me? They don't know what you're inviting them to. You know, but they don't know. Like, do they handle snakes there? Not yet. Here's the way I would invite someone to church. If I were you, I would say, hey, I love my church. What they've done for our family has been really extraordinary. I want you to come with me. I want you to come with me. Now look, the services last for an hour. Like, it's pretty crazy. You can plan on lasting for an hour. We sing 3 songs. The songs are awesome. Musicians are great. There's going to be 1 sermon. It's about 30 minutes. It's usually pretty good. We don't even take an offering, so you can leave your wallet in the car. It doesn't, like, we're not going to ask for your money. And the way I'm dressed right now is how I go to church. We're really casual. If you can just give a little bit of information. Hey, we got a coffee shop. You can get a cup of coffee. We'll talk before we go in. Or if you want to stay afterwards and have a meal with me, I'll buy your dinner. How cool would it be? Because now they know exactly what you're inviting them to. One more bit of advice from Jesus. Set realistic expectations. You're not going to get 100% people say yes. If you invite 3 people 3 times, on average, you will get 1 yes. And you think, well, man, that's like 30%. That's bad. No, it's not. You know who has the highest batting average of the Arizona Diamondbacks? David Peralta. You know what his batting average is? 293. Like, if you hit 33% on 3 pitches, you're awesome. Like, you're a professional inviter. Do you realize that 3-point shooters, the NBA this year, the 3-point shooters across the NBA in this year have averaged 35% as a shooter? No one's asking them to sit on the bench because they're only hitting 35%. That is a great average. Do you know the average number of drives in the NFL that score a point? Average number of drives, NFL score a point. 38%. You know where the Cardinals are? We're not last. Buffalo is last. We're next to last. You know, this is the point of the sermon where I tell you a couple stories of how I've invited 3 people to church and 1 came and we're going to baptize him this weekend. That's what I should say. The problem is I don't have one of those stories. I'm embarrassed to say that. Look, it's no easier for me than it is for you. But this is what I promise to you, my church family, this is what I promise. I will have a story before the year's end. Because I'm going to do with my wife exactly what I've suggested you do. Ask the right people at the right time. I've got 9 names. So do you. Imagine what would happen if all of us together began reaching out to those who want an invite but don't need an explanation. So to make sure that you have success, I want to let someone else give you one more coaching tip appropriate for your campus. So would you help me welcome to all 9 stages right now your campus pastor?
Good job, baby. You know, Mark's last point on setting realistic expectations is true. It hits home for me because this past year we saw a friend, a neighbor of ours, take a step towards Jesus that we've been waiting for 12 years ago. When we moved into our house 12 years ago, we struck up a great relationship with one of our neighbors. And we were a part of their lives. They were a part of our lives. We invited them to church all the time. And nothing ever quite stuck. Well, after many years of living side by side, they moved away. One of their kids who lived across the street from us. She was about 12 when we moved in. As she grew up, years later, moved away, an event took place in her life where she reached out back to us. And just that little connection was the very connection she needed to start moving towards Jesus in her life. So you never know when God's gonna move in a person's life. So as you invite, one of the best things we can do is we can stay persistent and we can stay available. I want to lead us just with this last takeaway from the prayer that we've done the past couple weeks. You can see this prayer in your programs that you have. We're going to put it up on the screen as well. I'm going to pray a line, and then after I'm done praying a line, I would like you, if you feel comfortable, to pray that line out loud. Why don't we also all stand together as we close out our service in prayer? Father, help me to see people as you see them. Father, help me. Jesus, give me the courage to brag about you. Holy Spirit, give me the words to speak when I don't know what to say. Father, we ask this with confidence, knowing your answer is yes. Amen. And Mark mentioned our Christmas services. They start on December 20th. You can find out about all those service times and when to invite people through our mobile app. We also have some Christmas invite cards at our CCV information table. Hey, have a very happy Thanksgiving this week. We'll see you next weekend.